Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise for a request, a point of personal privilege, a motion, and then a very short point of personal privilege.
First one's not short?
First one's short, too.
Okay. Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you. First, the request. I request that on page 29, if House Joint Resolution 743 and 744 be taken out of order.
The clerk will report a resolution.
Commending resolution on page 29, House Joint Resolution 743, commending Eugene Williams, and House Joint Resolution 744, commending Lorraine Payne Williams.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, the point of personal privilege.
Gentleman, Charlottesville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, today is another in the series of Black History Month speeches that we're giving in this chamber. And I'd like to take you back for a minute 60 years to the Charlottesville of the 1950s. Charlottesville in 1950 was about half the size it is today, and its surrounding county, Albemarle, was about a quarter of its size that it is today. In many ways, Charlottesville was a sleepy southern town, not unlike a lot of the small southern towns that many of your constituents grew up in. Sure, it had the University of Virginia, but back then, there were no undergraduate women, and certainly there were no undergraduate blacks. And it was a very small, fraternity-oriented place, very conservative. Black doctors in Charlottesville didn't have privileges at the University of Virginia Hospital, and the university was largely separate from the rest of the town. Black youngsters attended black schools, and segregation was the name of the game in Charlottesville 60 years ago. But ladies and gentlemen, that was about to change. And that change was brought about in part by the activities of Eugene and Lorraine Williams. In 1954, Eugene Williams was a 26-year-old district manager for an insurance company, and he had become the president of the local NAACP, which was a very small organization at the time. He'd grown up in Charlottesville in a house which fronted on a dirt road and had no indoor plumbing. He left to attend college in Louisiana. Unlike a lot of folks, he then went into the Army. When he came back, he still came back to a segregated place. He married his wife of 65 years, Lorraine, herself a Charlottesville native, who'd gone off to attend Hampton University and got her degree, and also returned home after graduation to a segregated town. Eugene and Lorraine believed, as Martin Luther King did, that the arc of history bends towards justice. But they were determined to bend that arc more quickly, and that's what they did. And so in the face of an organization called the White Citizens Council, which is unbelievable that it existed in Charlottesville, and in the aftermath of Brown v. Board of Education, a Supreme Court decision that was very unpopular in the South, they filed suit to integrate the Charlottesville public schools, and they won. But it wasn't as simple as that. It's never that simple. Because rather than comply with the court order for desegregating the schools, the governor, with complicity of the General Assembly and the local school board, just closed down the schools. They remained closed in Charlottesville for over a year. Yes, the people in Charlottesville would rather close their schools and have white kids and black kids go to get educated together. Amazing. Just 60 years ago. It wasn't until September of 1959, 5 years after Brown, that Charlottesville schools integrated. But the struggle wasn't over. It was necessary to force desegregation of the elementary schools. So Lorraine and Eugene went to work again. And Cheryl, their daughter, was involved in a lawsuit to integrate the schools, the elementary schools in Charlottesville. Cheryl, who's with us today also in the gallery, went on to attend Swarthmore and now lives in Philadelphia. And I can remember because my father-in-law, George Tremonton, was the school superintendent in Charlottesville at the beginning of the 60s. And he could tell me stories about how Eugene Williams and he went to court, student by student, to integrate the elementary schools in Charlottesville. Ladies and gentlemen, Lorraine and Eugene continued this fight. Eugene became a very successful business person, rehabbing houses in inner city neighborhoods, fighting for the rights of African Americans in Charlottesville. Eugene and Lorraine and countless others changed Charlottesville forever. They changed the state forever. They changed the country forever. Until today, Eugene and Lorraine, who are sitting in the back of the chamber today, had never been to the state capitol. But they're here today, and we are in a unique position to honor them today with the passage of these two resolutions. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I move the passage of HJR 743 and 744.
The questions on adoption of the resolutions. Those in favor of that motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The resolutions are agreed to.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thanks, Lorraine and Eugene Williams.
Mr. and Mrs. Williams, we are honored to have you with us here today. We thank you so much for the struggles and the fight that you took 70 years ago and continue to suffer. And the Commonwealth is so fortunate to have people like you as citizens. We thank you for coming today and hope you enjoy your time to the Capitol. Hope you come back. Don't wait another 70 years.